Thank y'all for coming out tonight. I'm Anna, the Bitcoin Club president, if for those of y'all I haven't met yet. We started Bitcoin Alabama last fall to kind of get students engaged with the Bitcoin community and bridge the gaps between traditional finance and Bitcoin education. And we've kind of started from the Bitcoin basics last fall to having more in-depth conversations. And we're super excited to have Matthew here today to talk to us about ARC. And then really quickly, I have this QR code here that y'all can scan if you want to input some questions here. We can maybe do a short Q&A at the end, or just feel free to shout it out whenever. But yeah, if y'all want to scan this QR code for questions. But yes, okay, so Matthew, he is a researcher and developer at Second, and he works with building ARC, which is a layer 2 Bitcoin payment solution. And he's going, we're really excited to have him here today. And with that, I'll hand the floor over to him to give an awesome presentation and talk to us tonight. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Anna. I'm happy to hear from you all tonight.
Oh, wait, we're having problems with sound really quickly. Hold up.
Okay.
All right, now?
How about now? Can you hear me clearly?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, we are good.
Yeah, and we mentioned for questions at the end. I would also like to invite, if anybody has a question throughout, please go ahead and ask then. I'd like to know just from the audience, like, I can't see anybody right now, but just to know, like, people in the room, how familiar are people with Bitcoin? Like, have the people in the room, are you just learning about Bitcoin for the first time? Have you made a Bitcoin transaction yet? Have you used a wallet? I just want to have some people's skill levels in mind so that I can articulate everything at the right level.
Most people have been learning about Bitcoin over, like, for the first time just over the past 6 months. We did a little bit of a Lightning transaction 101 in the fall, but so far that's kind of the extent of transacting we've done here at the club. But
we also have a lot of new people here tonight.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's good that people know what the Lightning Network is and they know about Lightning transactions. That'll help a lot with the presentation, just to know that information. But I'll keep things simple for everybody. I'm going to share my screen to present now. Let me, Great. Can you all see my screen here?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. So tonight I'll be presenting you scaling Bitcoin with Lightning and ARC. So rather than going really deep on the technical, I thought it would be good to give a timeline and a context for the Lightning Network and for what ARC is, and understand where these protocols come from and how changes get made to Bitcoin. And also, what does it mean to scale Bitcoin at all? So I'm actually going to start us off. Before we go into the presentation, I'm going to pull up mempool.space. This is a really important website for people who are Bitcoiners to know, because it shows you all of the blocks. So Bitcoin is a blockchain, and the blocks are all in a linear numerical order. So a block was just mined number 942,069, and then was 68, 67, and that goes all the way back 16 years to the Genesis block with Satoshi in 2009. So you can see that some of these blocks here look full, and some of them look like they're about half empty. And the reason why is that each Bitcoin block has a limited size. So let me pull up a Bitcoin block that's full, for example, and then one that is about halfway there, right over here. So what you'll notice is that a Bitcoin block consists of many transactions. So if you're sending a Bitcoin payment, that Bitcoin is one of many transactions, and you can look in the block and see a big list of them. I hope it's not overwhelming to see too much at once. But what you just have to know here is that every Bitcoin block can only hold so many. And when Satoshi came and gave us Bitcoin in the beginning, he left the project. And when he left the project, there was not a lot of block space size. In fact, people were running out of space, so transactions became very expensive. The fees became very high to transact with Bitcoin. And also, if you wanted to have your transaction finalized and confirmed on the network, sometimes you would have to wait hours if you wanted to pay a low fee. So the Bitcoin community came together and said, how can we increase the throughput? And many changes were made to Bitcoin to increase that throughput. And those changes are why we have Lightning and the Arc today. So I'm going to give us a little bit of a history about what those changes were. And let's get right into it. So I'm going to open up the slideshow here. Is this full screen for everybody? Can you see? Just verifying.
It's like it's
Yep.
just kind of blurred. Okay, yeah, there we go.
Is this better?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'll just present in the window. Okay. So Visa does, and just to warn everybody, I have a lot of text on these slides. Don't let that overwhelm you. Just, I'll highlight the most important details, and if anyone has any questions, you can ask. The Visa does 24,000 transactions per second. Bitcoin does less. So I gave you the demo about the limited size of those blocks. Bitcoin is not just a tool to hold and trade in dollars. It is a technology for permissionless self-custody and global transactions, powering payments for billions of people. So if we see that Visa does 24,000 transactions per second, and Bitcoin, you know, with its scaling woes, like it can do a lot less. I think when Satoshi left, it could only do 7 transactions per second. And that's not able to power the entire world. We cannot bring Bitcoin to hundreds of millions of people everywhere with just 7 transactions per second. We need to make changes to Bitcoin in order to get there. So if we really want the whole world using Bitcoin, then we have to scale it somehow. There's 2 ideas that you'll hear about in scaling. There's horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. So horizontal scaling is to take those blocks we were looking at earlier and make them bigger. If there's a highway with a lot of traffic, you can think about that as adding more lanes to the highway. And it's a simple solution, but the road gets expensive to maintain. And fewer people can run nodes. So that hurts Bitcoin's property of being decentralized. So that's the challenge. Vertical scaling is the idea that we should build additional payment layers on top of Bitcoin in order to transact. So the original highway is the same size, but we're going to stack additional highways on top. And that's where Lightning comes from. That's what the Lightning Network is. That's what the Liquid Network is or was. It's not used very much anymore. And that's what ARC is as well, is that these are running in parallel to this original Bitcoin blockchain, and you transact on them separately for that. So it's a vertical scaling solution. So what are ARC and Lightning for people who don't know? The best way to learn what they are is to actually use them. So I'm going to keep it very conceptual, that they are ways that people can transact with Bitcoin, but not using this original Bitcoin blockchain that is limited in its throughput. Like notice here that you'll never see a transaction or a block with 10,000 transactions. It's 4,000, it's filling up at 4,400, filling up in the 3,500, 3,200 range. You'll never see one with 10,000. So if people are really going to be using Bitcoin at the same rate, oh, and each block is 10 minutes. So there's no way that this is able to compete with Visa. Bitcoiners know this. That's why we have off-chain protocols like ARC and Lightning. So Lightning was conceived of in 2015. I think 2016 is actually when the paper came out in January, between Joseph Poon and Thaddeus, he's known as Taj Drea, and the Lightning Network came online in 2017 to 2018. It's used everywhere today. So if you go on the App Store and you download a Bitcoin app, Bitcoin wallet, you're going to find probably some way to transact with Lightning on that app. And ARC is a new system. It was conceived of only in 2023, and it's coming online in 2025 to 2026. And it's used together with Lightning. And these are vertical scaling solutions. And their mission and their goal is that we can use Bitcoin everywhere to make transactions at the same throughput as existing systems like Visa and MasterCard can do. So I thought it would be useful that I could create a timeline that takes us from the Satoshi era in the beginning to various updates that were made to Bitcoin. And that will show us the importance of the Bitcoin developer community enabling this scaling to happen and give some context as to where the tools come from. Like some people, they'll say, oh, I'm thankful to Satoshi for the Lightning Network. This is wrong. Satoshi did not create the Lightning Network. The Lightning Network came in the middle, in the SegWit epoch. It was conceived of in the era after Satoshi left, but it was the work of many developers teaming up together to bring us the Lightning Network. And those communities are still continuing and building today. And you could be part of them. You could join them and work in them as a career and have a job as a Bitcoin developer, as a student. And many people who built these foundational changes to Bitcoin, they were Bitcoin students in university, just like you, learning about this technology between the ages of 18 and 23. And then they went on to actually build out these solutions. So I hope that message is clear. Another misconception that we have about Satoshi is that he just magically appeared and gave us Bitcoin, and Bitcoin was great, and he vanished. This is very wrong. When Satoshi left the group, Bitcoin had a lot of limitations. So he left the project actually in 2011, and he assigned someone to be the new lead maintainer. That guy's name was Gavin Andresen. And this community of the code base that Satoshi left, it exists to this day as the project we now know as Bitcoin Core. So if you want to go download the Bitcoin software, you'll notice that the software is called Bitcoin Core. That's where this comes from. The transaction per second as Satoshi left, it was very low, and there was no way it could compete with Visa or MasterCard. It would not be possible for even a few 100 million people on Earth to use Bitcoin everywhere. So even the whole population of the United States, even if they all wanted to use Bitcoin instead of credit cards, instead of whatever fiat banking system they use today, it would not have been possible for them to do it. So changes had to be made to Bitcoin. So obviously, people got into a lot of arguments and they disagreed. And there was two factions that formed. One group said we need to make the blocks bigger. That group left Bitcoin basically to go become Bitcoin Cash. And if you look up like different blockchain prices, like crypto markets, you'll find there's another coin called Bitcoin Cash. That's where this coin comes from. Obviously, they lost the argument. That's why they're called Bitcoin Cash. The community that said we should build additional layers, this is our community. This is Bitcoin. This is when you go to the Bitcoin conference and you meet people and you go on a Bitcoin meetup. We descend from this community that said we should create Lightning. And they did. They succeeded in building it. It's really an amazing story. So, the payment channels. You can imagine a Lightning payment channel as being a fixed channel between two people, and there's a set amount of Bitcoin in there. I like to use an hourglass as an example. Like imagine you pick up an hourglass, there's a fixed amount of sand in the hourglass, and it can move from one side to the other, but the amount cannot increase or decrease. That's what a Bitcoin Lightning channel is like. There's new innovations that you can do called splicing to change the size of a Lightning channel, but that's beyond the scope of the presentation. Just assume that people are sending Bitcoin to each other in these bilateral channels. So you'll notice that each channel has two people at each end, and then they all come together like a big network. So the Lightning Network is a big mesh network, as you can see here, of a whole bunch of nodes connected with these individual channels. And when you want to make a payment to somebody, the money travels through all the different nodes of the network, and that's Lightning routing. So that's how payments happen. They happen being routed through this network of Lightning nodes. And then what happens is that the results of the flows of the money between the channels, those get pushed down to the original blocks, the original Bitcoin layer 1 that we were looking at here. And then users can withdraw that money, put it into cold storage, use a wallet, self-custody, and get maximum security. They can walk away from their Bitcoin for 15 years and put it in their hardware wallet and never have to worry about it. The Lightning Network is really good for transacting, but if you want to do that long-term storage and you're not really going to be transacting, then you should return down here. In order to activate Lightning, I know this is a lot of text, 3 updates had to be made to Bitcoin. So they changed Bitcoin with these 3 updates in order to power Lightning. The first one was check lock time verify, then came check sequence verify, and then came segregated witness, which fixed something called the transaction malleability problem. So now Lightning can go live. Great. And at this point also, everybody who disagreed with Lightning, all the people who said we should scale Bitcoin horizontally, that's when they left and they became Bitcoin Cash. So that date happened at a specific block height. So notice how today our current block height is 942.069. This was in 2017 and the block number was 481.824. So that's like a new epoch, a new era beginning in Bitcoin, because the Bitcoin protocol changed, and it changed for the better, because then we could use Lightning in order to transact. And then it changed again in 2021. But in this era, Lightning was getting started. It was beginning. Many apps, like if you go on the App Store and you try and download a Bitcoin wallet, like Phoenix, Breeze, Wallet of Satoshi, they all originate, not all of them, but many that originated in this area still exist in modern day. So the ecosystem was growing. Some of those players have persisted, but Lightning also had issues with it. It has a lot of usability issues. That's the way to make it simple, is that while it's true that Lightning did enable millions and millions and millions of more people to transact with Bitcoin, it did so in a way that was cumbersome. It was difficult for people to use Bitcoin in a self-custodial way. So Lightning worked best when you're trusting a counterparty. So you would have a website or an app that you're using to make Lightning payments, and that website or app, in theory, could run away with your Bitcoin. It did not have the same level of self-custody. You could do it in a self-custodial way, but that required technical knowledge. You had to be like a computer programmer to know how to do it. And some people say, no, any hobbyist could do it, but it was not accessible for the average person. I have another illustration right here. I want you to imagine the Lightning Network at this time. Like, it's a topology of all this money traveling around, routing between these nodes. But in order to participate in it, you have to know how to interface with these channels. You have to start learning about channels and how to run one, and you have a receiving capacity. This is completely inaccessible to people who use Visa, MasterCard. Nobody's going to learn this. You're not going to have billions of people using this the way that they have modern payment solutions. And there was also another technical limitation in Bitcoin at the time. There was 2 transaction types. So you had a key spend and a script spend. So every time that you were transferring money, like if you have a transaction that lives in one of these blocks, you had to decide, am I using my Bitcoin to send money to a different person, to send money to somebody else, or am I using it to create a new channel? There were 2 different ways. It wasn't the same way to transact. It was fragmented. Like you had to pick between the options. So another update came to Bitcoin in 2021 called Taproot. And with Taproot, we could do so much more. This is our current era. So if we're thinking about Bitcoin, not just as a philosophy or an economic system or something that you read about and listen to on a podcast, but if you think about Bitcoin as a code base and a technology that developers are working on, our current era began here in 2021, and that's the activation of Taproot. And Taproot enabled new innovations to Bitcoin, which allow us to have things like Arc and allow us to solve the problems of usability that we faced in the previous SegWit epoch. So the Arc is only architecturally possible because of Taproot in 2021. So if you wanted to create the Arc in 2015 and you had this idea, it would not be possible. You couldn't do it. And then Arc was presented by somebody named Barak in 2023. He was the original person to conceive of the idea. And yes, I believe the rumors are true, and it is a reference to Noah's Ark, like in the Bible. And we will board the Ark with our funds and our money, and that will save us and allow us to be able to transact away from the waters of fiat around us. It's a protocol that uses virtual UTXOs. So users do not use channels. So remember before you had this topology of these Lightning channels and they're all networked together. That's gone for the normal user. The channels still exist, but the Arc obfuscates them from you. You just hold self-custodial Bitcoin, which behaves very similar to the behavior of Bitcoin that you would hold in a normal wallet. And it has full interoperability with Lightning. So after Barak created the conception of Bitcoin, two different teams emerged in order to build the Arcs. One of them is called Arc Labs, and their product is Arcade, and their CEO is Marco Argentieri. He goes by Tiero from Italy. And then their second, Bark, is our product with Stephen Roos from Belgium. This is the Arc that I work on. And what's different about Arc from Lightning is that Lightning has a network of all of these different little Lightning nodes all wired together. It has this very flat topology, but Arc, there's individual Arcs. So you go to your Arc. So for example, I'm with the second Arc. I go to my Arc, which I have a wallet with, and then I can make Lightning payments out of there, and it will handle all of the channels. It will handle all of the routing. I just have to go to my one Arc in order to do that. So it has a client server model. So I connect to an individual Arc, and then I'm able to hold my funds in self-custody, and the Arc is also able to make outbound payments. The way the Arc does this is that it makes intermittent transactions on-chain. So just like any normal Bitcoin transfer of money uses a transaction, or how opening a Lightning channel also involves using a transaction, Arc has intermittent on-chain transactions that guarantee my money exists within the Arc system. And it does this using these nice trees. A little technical, I don't want to overwhelm. And what's amazing about it is that the Arc payments can route Lightning payments for you. So the user just holds their local VTXOs in their own Arc, and then all the channels are abstracted away from the user having to even know that they exist. Users can transact with Arc with the Lightning network without even knowing that the Lightning network exists or it's a thing. They don't have to know and conceptualize it at all. And that update I was telling you about in 2021, it had 3 different aspects to it. It had Schnorr signatures. It merged the 2 outputs together. So before, remember I told you that you had to decide between the key spend or the script spend. They were 2 separate ways of transacting. What Taproot did is it merged them together into one. And that allows for more interesting things to happen, like being able to use the ARC to route payments on your behalf. It's also used for users being able to unilaterally exit the system. That means they can take their money out of the ARC without needing permission of the ARC. Like if you go to an exchange website like Binance or Coinbase, you can deposit money in there and you can transact with them, and they even power Lightning payments. But if something happens and you violate their terms of service, they can restrict your ability to withdraw your Bitcoin, and they hold on to your money and deny you access to it. But the ARC, that's not the case. And in the way that before, the nature of the on-chain transaction was the opening of a payment channel that was bilateral between two people. So the network, the Lightning Network, is a whole bunch of these two-person channels stuck together. ARC is not like that. Rather, because of this tap tree that exists in Taproot, many parties can share a single UTXO. It doesn't have a limitation of only being two parties involved at any given time. So all of these were updated at once. It wasn't sequential. This was just called the Taproot update. And the important thing to note here is that ARC and Lightning work together. So in that way, the Lightning Network came and gave us a great way to have a lot of throughput. And then ARC came in order to manage the liquidity and help with the usability of the network. And that's where we are today. That's the updates that have been made to Bitcoin in order to give us the ability to transact with Lightning and ARC. And I want to emphasize that these are not updates that came from Satoshi Nakamoto. These are updates that came from Peter Willa, Jonas Nick. See, like every BIP has specific authors associated with it. And these are Bitcoin developers that are committing their time and their resources to scale Bitcoin, increase its throughput, and make it better to transact on the network so that the whole world can use it as a permissionless freedom money. Now, here we are at present day. Where do we go from here? So just to give you a retrospect, in the beginning era, in the Satoshi era, we could imagine what Lightning would be like, but we couldn't do it yet. Then SegWit came and Lightning became possible, but it still had some struggles. And then Taproot came, which gave us the ARC, and ARC can now be used as a gateway to Lightning for everyday people. And the way that users will interact with ARC is just that you go to your favorite app on the App Store and you download it, and then that app will be ARC enabled. There's nothing extra you have to do on your end, unless you're a developer and you would like to start building ARC applications. But this is something that is done at the level of the wallets and the Bitcoin companies and the exchanges that they will support it. And there is a next step that we can conceptualize that many developers are working towards, which is called adding covenants to Bitcoin. And what they will do is that they will alleviate the liveness requirements. What that means is that currently in the ARC, users have to come back online intermittently in order to refresh their money if they want to use the system in a 100% trustless way. By enabling covenants, which is more changes to Bitcoin, of course, then people will be able to hold their money in the ARC for long periods of time without having to come online. You could put your money in the ARC and walk away for 6 months and come back and check in on it, and your money will still be there in a completely trustless way. That's the advantage. So that's what's on the horizon that developers are working on right now. And here I elaborate a little bit more. There's two different main proposals. There's the CTV path of proposals, and there's the template hash path of how we're going to go about adding in the covenants and improving them. So in conclusion, I really hope that today's presentation shows that Bitcoin didn't just come from anywhere. And in order to give a really good user experience to Bitcoin, one that everyone can use Bitcoin in a seamless way, hundreds of millions of people can use it. It can be used as a feasible alternative to credit cards and banking as we know it today. That took a lot of work and a lot of updates from a developer community, which is actively building and which you can become a part of and also build a career in if you want. And that is the message of my presentation.